education with no certification. Catalysm from capitalism. Grease, salt, and broad forms of activism. Oh, how the tides have risen. I'm speaking horizontal indoctrinations with long-term ramifications. Hieroglyphics in translation. Message in the bottle.
Jams, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
It's good to see you. Good to see you.
You're close, but so far away.
I know. It's the future. We're in the future now.
So, for episode 5, Worldview, I figured that's one that we could talk for hours on. But
Sure,
in this segment, let's dive into the broader idea of worldview from a bigger picture standpoint. What I wanted to kick off and just throw at you was, worldview, it dictates everything, right? It dictates, our parenting. It dictates our vocation. It dictates your political affiliation. Why you get out of bed in the morning. Really, it's the driving force behind, our being throughout the day. And that just kind of blows me away. Like, it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly, right? Because everything revolves around that, right? How you treat people, the decisions that you make.
Definitely.
And it's if you think about it, like the way that I like to think about it is, we're all born as a blank canvas, and stroke by stroke, whether it's your parents, your mentors, friends, cultural influence, we're painted over stroke by stroke. We're taught how to speak in our local tongue. We're taught what to wear. We're taught our manners. We're taught ideology. We're taught what gods to believe in, what gods to not believe in. And slowly, in our most influential years, we essentially become a living piece of art that somebody else painted, that somebody else created, right?
Not just painted, molded, right?
Exactly.
When you talk about the framework and how long it takes to have a worldview, I feel like I was blessed enough to have family members that had a broad worldview, because they were able to have the exposure needed to understand how other cultures work, how other places work. I think education is a big part of worldview, right? If you come from a very rural place, you might not have a broader worldview as somebody that lives in a huge city that was molded by just different cultures, right? Even though your parents had probably the starting point. You think about school, you think about neighborhoods, you think about kids you meet from different religions and different culture views. And I was one of these guys who was blessed enough to kind of like, one of my best friends was Muslim as a kid, right? From Africa, Kenya and Somalia. So, his mother speaking to me and calling me Oyo and telling me about their history helped mold me. My father having a collection of, I don't know if you remember, Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh, yeah.
God forbid I asked the question. And he reminded us how much he spent on these books, and we did research on that. So that kind of helped mold my worldview. Having a mother that was a Catholic and a father that believed in Eastern philosophy like Buddhism and Taoism and such, that helped mold my worldview. And even now, with so much information on social media and the internet, I feel like my worldview is getting even bigger. It's changing, and
it's evolving.
It's always evolving. So
when you think about it, as we become adults too, part of finding our way or finding our worldview is also looking that idea of deconstruction, where you're looking at certain of those paint strokes on that canvas, right? What of these things that I was raised with is necessary? What is accurate? What is not accurate? What is needed and what is not needed? and you identify those as we mature, and obviously we don't need to reverse how we speak and dress, and how we
Sure.
eat, and the manners like to fit in with society. But when it comes to ideologies and how we view the world and view ourselves, we can start painting over those strokes and taking control of our own canvas to become more of you know more authentic, I guess is the word.
Yeah, I find that fascinating as well. But I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, the older people get, the more conservative they get in those worldly views, right? And
Interesting.
I think
Hmm.
it happens to those who are not so content, right? We're young and we want the world to change, and we're pretty much progressive as young men and young women, and we're fighting for justice and all these things. And then we get a little older and we accept the world as it is, and then we get mad at the younger people for wanting to do the same thing. We ridicule
Yeah.
them and we tell them, oh, you guys don't know how the world works. Things never change. Things are always the
Yeah.
same. There's nothing new under the sun. That's one thing that family members used to tell me. There's nothing new under the sun. The human condition will never change. We're going to repeat the same thing over and over again. But we have seen the world change, right? And
Right.
it's because of those strokes are broadening our worldview. So I
Right.
feel like if we keep exposing ourselves to new things, if we keep learning, if we keep progressing as human beings, our worldview will align at some point, and move us forward, right?
And that's the hope. I mean, in my latest book, The Modern Know-It-All, I lay out a game plan to assemble an infallible worldview, which I call it. And essentially, the idea is, no matter what worldview that we choose to deconstruct from and rebuild ourselves, the idea that everyone should pursue is to upgrade their worldview software, essentially out
Yeah.
of outdated ideologies and outdated thinking into more modern, a modern worldview. And this infallible worldview is essentially, I the way that I lay it out in the book is, it's a hybridization of several different ones.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this in the philosophy episode, but it's like a worldview buffet. Like, you don't have to be just one thing. You can be a little bit of a secular humanist, a little bit of a modern stoic. You can throw in the Buddhism, Taoism. Being a considerate hedonist is a modern approach to hedonism. And then one of the main ones is, that tops it all off on that buffet, it's constructive nihilism. And you talk about getting older. It's, for me, the older I get, the more nihilistic I become. But not in the way of, in a negative way. It's that constructive nihilism, that everything is arbitrary, right?
Yes.
Everything is made up. It's only as serious as you allow it to be.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that nothingness
Yeah.
makes it freeing and beautiful.
Well, you're kind of letting yourself go, right?
And letting it go.
As
Yeah.
far as being in a construct and following, like, every rule needs to. I mean, even the Bible has changed
Yeah.
1,000 times in 3,000 years, right? Now that's not a number, a solid number. I'm just exaggerating, or
Right.
maybe I'm not. I don't know. But
Yeah.
when the times change, the philosophy has to kind of follow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
Well, you
stoning.
modify it to fit.
Yeah, because we're
your
we're
world.
not
Yeah.
stoning people in the middle of the street anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be cool. But I do believe that exposure and education changes the worldview, and the more people travel and accept other cultures and are seeing other cultures, and this is why misinformation exists, right? To keep people confused. This is why the governments are banning books. You know what I mean? Because the
Right.
more people that get educated, they start understanding how people should be treated, how humanity should be working together, you know,
Right.
why people are rich and why people are poor, and why are different ideologies fighting for different things, right?
Yeah.
We went from class warfare to the elite to colorism, you know, to homophobia. I mean, there's so many different reasons why people have their worldviews, right?
Yeah.
But at the end, when you accept that their worldview and your worldview, it doesn't have to click.
Right.
It doesn't have to
It
click.
doesn't have to fall into a genre.
It doesn't.
It doesn't have to be labeled.
Not all of the world
Right.
is going to evolve the same at the same time, right?
Yeah.
There's places that are highly evolved, you know,
Yeah.
and then there's places that are just seem like they're just coming out of the Stone Age, you know.
And you know, but the worldviews in our daily lives, our coworkers, our neighbors, our family, friends, the worldviews that are still latching on to more of outdated stuff, outdated ideology, it hinders progression. And
It does.
that's the frustrating thing. It's like you know, on one hand you want to be like, okay, that's your worldview, that's why you get up every morning, and that's the fuel in your tank, sure. But if it's affecting the rest of us, you know, it might be time to take a look at it and go, what can be deconstructed from here? What can be upgraded from here? Like a cognitive software, essentially.
And that makes a lot of sense, right? And my problem is we're living in a world where the minority controls the majority. So
Yeah.
small groups worldview it's suffocating a whole population.
Yeah, right.
You know, and that's where we have to kind of remember that we the people have more power than we're told that we have.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that goes back to your education, you know, comment. I'm just helping.
Exactly. But it's sad that we have to be put in such a restraint for us to understand how much power that we do have. Like, why do we have to lose everything, go against, you know, civilization and what we want to get what we want, and then end up in the same place? Because again, we in a human condition, we're very tribal, right? So we're gonna look out for our tribe, right? So the minute we get into a point of power, we look out for ours.
Yeah.
But when we understand that we're all in this together, then the world kind of broadens a little bit, and then we're not just looking out for a small group, we're looking out for everybody. But we're taught that this is taught behavior, just like you said, we start as a blank canvas. We're taught this.
Yep, exactly.
We're taught to just look out for each of our own instead of, you know, a whole, you know, your community. You have to live in that community. You just can't just take care of your house. You have to help take care of the community. Right now, we're in a space where people just want to take care of their house, all right, and let the community fall apart.
Everybody else is on their own.
Yeah. So if you look at that in the worldview, the world is falling apart. But I still manage to get up every day and go to work and pretend it's not happening. Yeah. Right? Because I'm distracted. Right? And I'm looking out just for my children and my wife and, you know, and my well-being, right? And it's as long as one group of people have more to lose than the other group of people, you're going to have that consolidation. You know, we're not all on the same page, so we're not all fighting for the same things. Right? Not everybody's feeling the pressures and the pain all at the same time.
Right.
So
and everybody's, you know, worldview journey is at different stages too.
Definitely.
And that's where you have to be empathetic and be like, okay, I am where I'm at. There's, you know, it took a while for me to.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of marches today, right?
Oh yeah.
We have the No Kingdom.
Sure is.
And they're estimating something like 17 million people. Right?
Yeah. I was at the one last year actually.
But so if we're saying 17 million people are marching, I think it's something like 3,000 or something different marches, right? There's 300 million people in this country. So and only 17 million people are marching.
Yeah, right.
So you can't tell me only 17 million people are feeling you know, how difficult these times are, right? You know,
Right.
and we
Yeah.
sympathize, but we sympathize internally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's scary to even give your worldview because you don't want your job to know, you don't want your boss to know, you don't want your
Right.
church to know, you don't want the community to know how you
Yeah.
feel. You know, it's sad that the minority can put up a flag, you know, a MAGA hat, but the majority won't even let you know where they stand.
Yeah.
You
I
understand?
think, yeah, and that's tricky too, because then that kind of ties into ignorance too, which, we could do a whole segment on that.
Oh yeah,
But,
definitely.
the worldview, I find it interesting how, your worldviews can be so different from your neighbor, but yet if you go to a sporting arena or to any sort of gathering, you're there with a common purpose, right? The guy to
Yeah.
your left could be, MAGA. The guy to your right could be,
And nobody
most
cares.
extreme, and people don't care in those
Yeah,
moments.
yeah. We're rooting for the same team.
You're there for the same
I
purpose.
might buy you a beer, you know?
Exactly. And and if somebody, if you see somebody cross on the road and they're about to be hit by a car, the altruist in us is going to try to prevent them. We're not going to first ask them what their worldview is. And,
Exactly. Well, I was told the way to keep peace with friends and family is or any setting is you don't speak about politics or religion, right? You know. So I mean, but
it's a shame that you have to do that, though.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
There was somebody told me at one point in Palestine and Israel, in the before maybe 3,000 years ago, every religion was in that one place, right? And people really didn't care.
Yeah.
And then you look at today, there's only two groups and they don't get along. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, and back to the blank slate, everyone is born atheist until convinced otherwise.
I love that.
We come out of the womb without any belief in any of the gods. We are slowly painted over by those that are in charge.
Even the way we deal with our experiences.
Yep.
It's taught, definitely.
Yep, absolutely. And it's to kind of come to a summary of worldview, and it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time to build. I mean, I went from 20 years of a Christian worldview to agnostic to to militant atheist for a little bit, to now where I'm more of that constructive nihilist where it's all made up. It's all fabricated stuff. So it's really not that big of a deal. And I don't have to be anything.
I'm on the same boat. I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm okay with not knowing.
I don't need to be anybody. Yeah.
I do have my views, and I know my worldviews dictate how I operate. I'm not ignorant to that. Yep. But I'm okay with I choose to believe what I want, right? I chose to believe in a philosophy for a long time. That was a choice, right? I chose to live by that philosophy. And if I don't want to live by that anymore, that's okay. If I see something different, it doesn't go against everything I've known. And I think fear is a huge part of it, right? A lot of people are afraid that once they see something that doesn't fit to what their worldview, that their whole life is a lie. And that's not true. What I believe is that as we progress, and this is my worldview, as we progress, right, it's okay to change your worldview. It's okay to progress with the times. Yeah. You're only outdated if you can't,
constantly change. Adapt.
Adapt. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's what I was looking for. That simple word, adapt. And I remember in school, that's the definition of an organism. Anything that reproduces and adapts to the environment. That's all we are, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we adapt or die. We adapt or die. And maybe that's why we do get old and wither away, because we can't adapt anymore, right? My dad used to say, when nature doesn't need you anymore, it'll find something else to replace you.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's good. I mean, that's great. And you're right. If we don't adapt, not just for, societal practice or societal, you know, ways of life, if we don't adapt ideologically and cognitively either, it's like swimming upstream.
Yeah.
And the idea is, you seem very confident in your worldview. I'm confident in mine, and it took a while to kind of assemble that buffet of different ones that I operate on a daily basis. But the idea, like you said, is just education, right? Which is just to gently, empathize with where people are at, and just plant seeds, little seeds of that upgrading.
I think the difference between us and other people or other entities is that we're not trying to push our worldviews on them.
No.
Right? I'm not desperate anymore I want you to see things the way I do. Even with my children, I'm not even that way anymore. I'm like, tell me your worldview. We can have a conversation. I'm going to tell you mine, and you see if that fits. I was okay with going from a Buddhist philosophy to does it really matter, right? I mean, because the human part of it makes it flawed anyways. So I was all into the Buddhism until they went after the Dalai Lama. Right. And then I'm like, oh my God, how could they do this? It's not the philosophy, it's the people. It's people in general. People can make you love or hate something, right? So I'm not mad at the philosophy. To me is beautiful, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But the corruption of people make it so kind of pushes you away, and that goes for Christianity, that goes for Islam, that goes for
everything,
for Zion. It goes for everybody, right? So we can have our worldview, but if we don't evolve as people, we're gonna keep fighting over things that are temporary and don't matter in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the best worldview, to be summed up, can be just caring about people, animals, and nature, right? That's the safest. If you have to define it, that's
pretty much it, right? That's pretty much. I couldn't sum it up any better than that. That was beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Well, so this is good, and then our next segment's on being worldly minded, which a lot of this stuff will flow right into it.
Definitely.
No, this is good, and it's worldview can be broken down. I know it's a very umbrella topic, but we can always dive into smaller little factions.
Oh, definitely. I don't mind these general conversations because even though we kind of put our we infuse what we believe in, I don't want to marginalize anybody, right? And the whole point is to have an open mind, right? What I know to be true today, tomorrow might not be so. I mean, how relative is truth, right? How what's absolute? We haven't even touched the surface of that yet because we don't understand everything, and that's okay. There's so much information to decipher from. That's why I really don't like to pinpoint too much. I'm open-minded because I'm still learning and I'm still trying to figure out life and what's gonna help me just be at peace.
And that's great, and that's a perfect segue into worldly minded. Is talking about open minded. So let's jump into that next one.
All right.
Message in a bottle that rocks the nation, the cradle of life, the wrong, the right, the struggle, the strife. I must decipher with full insight. Note to self, a future self, I need your help. In conclusion, I'm assuming, know thyself, be aware of your movements. I'm consuming, life's confusing. This message in the bottle could diffuse it. I'm the decider, moving full throttle. Message in the bottle. Great warnings ignored so wealth can soar. Nature mourns its structures torn. What came natural is now so foreign. The lies are exciting, the truth is boring, and no one is willing to pay the price for it. We're defying gravity. Ask yourself carefully. The third rock was paradise
before we stepped in gradually.
We are the only species the world can live without. If you think about it logically, they sent this bottle as policy. Take heed of this prophecy. It gets deep. Pardon me.